Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's well. Beautiful, warm autumn day today. Is anyone new? Could you put your hand up if you haven't been here before? Yeah. Okay, that's good. I'll read out the refuge and bodhicitta prayer that we say at Tara Institute every teaching. So for those of you who've been here before, this is sort of the bookend. The beginning is your refuge and bodhicitta, which refuge being safe direction and bodhicitta being your aspiration. And it's the front bookend, the back bookend is the dedication. So in the middle is your whatever activity you've engaged in. So for this hour, you happen to be listening and hopefully thinking and also meditating. So you're generating a lot of virtue in this period of time. So we're directing that virtue in a certain direction, and at the end we dedicate it for a worthwhile aim. So that worthwhile aim we'll talk a bit about tonight. So I'll just read the prayer once, but we normally read it 3 times to emphasise it over and over again. So I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma and the highest assembly. From the virtuous merit that I collect by practicing giving and other perfections, may I attain the state of Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. So last week we covered a little bit about the emotion of anger, and I went through some of the benefits of its opposite, which is the mind of patience. And that mind, it has a few different aspects, but the one we're looking at is being able to not react with anger to certain situations. So some of the benefits were, I'll just read them out because I've got a good list here. One will have few enemies. One cannot be conquered by an external enemy. One's mental and physical happiness increases. One will die without regret. In one's future rebirth, one's appearance will be beautiful or pleasant to others. Another benefit of the mind of patience is others are attracted to you. So that's not way off in the future, that's in this lifetime. So through the mind of patience, other beings are attracted to you. And because we have ceased harming others through anger, our life will be better and our future life will be high and peaceful. So they're the advantages of patience. Can anyone remember what are some of the disadvantages of anger, the mind of anger? Yep. Not many friends, yes. That's right, wiping away years of merit. And they say because anger is quick to rise and the actions are very, therefore very powerful, because the emotion's very quick and powerful and it's driven by hatred, that it can wipe away a huge amount of the good merit that you've accumulated in an instant. So that's something to ponder, because we think, oh well, if I'm angry, it doesn't matter, there's no harm done to me or the other person, but it can be very detrimental to us and to others, of course. Any other disadvantages or? It's stressful, yes. It creates stress, yes. So when you're angry, you can't hold the mind of happiness and the mind of anger at the same time. So you'll be stressed, upset, worried. You won't have a mind of peace and happiness at the same time. They don't. One will be sort of trodden down, and the other one will be to the fore. So that's not a very good one, is it? Because you think, well, if you're stressed, and certainly in the West we're very stressed, and someone spoke about this last week. They asked me a question about anxiety. And we don't actually talk about anxiety too much, but in effect it's a form of worry, isn't it? And in my observation, although men suffer from it, I think the younger females suffer from it a lot more. They're worried, or really concerned about life and what's happening, and it works its way into some form of anxiety that they don't have any means to perhaps deal with the problems that are occurring. So anyway, it's not really related to anger, but it's just I thought I'd throw that in because it certainly is a concerning phenomena that we have. So if you're angry, can you be attractive or beautiful when you're expressing full-blown anger? No? What about if you're a supermodel, or someone who is really beautiful? If they're angry, super angry, could you look at them as being beautiful? No, it sort of wipes away any semblance of, well, they still look good. You don't think like that. When you look at them, you think, oh no. So if our partners or friend is in full-blown anger, at that moment it's very difficult to think of them as beautiful, attractive, and so on. So so one of the other disadvantages is because you can't have that mind of peace and happiness at the same time as the mind of anger. You're in this sort of, is it the anger driving Mark and his actions, and is there any way to stop it or subdue it or overcome it? So that's the question we ask in Buddhism. All these minds that come up, these afflicted states of mind, can we actually do anything about them? Would anyone like to say whether we can do something about them or we can't? Sorry, what was that? Distract them. Distract your mind from anger. Yeah, that's one form of temporarily taking the attention away from the object of anger or the anger itself. And at that moment, if you can do it, then your mind, the anger will subside and your mind will be more at peace. What's that? Breathe, yeah, that's a technique to do it, yes. So so there are a few techniques so that we can cover. I think this week we'll do a little bit more on the meditation, because I spoke about a few techniques, being like a piece of wood, inert. So that's one technique when you're feeling it hasn't quite risen yet and someone's disturbing you. If you can think, oh well, I'll just let them say what they're saying or do what they want to do, but I won't react. So that requires a lot of practice. So when the situation we can practice it in is when we do the meditation. And the way the meditation works, and I've mentioned this before, is it gives you that cognitive space. Once you've done the meditation, you've sort of rehearsed it almost. It doesn't really matter what the situation is, but when the situation arises, because you've done this rehearsal in your head, it gives you that microsecond or a few seconds more time to not immediately react with anger. And if you think, oh, that's not that good, if people don't have any technique and the situation arises that causes anger to come up, they have no means of dealing with it other than going with it. They can't stop it in its tracks. They just have to go along with the mind of anger. And you can see some people are so consumed by it that they're shaking with rage. Everyone's heard that term, haven't they? They're shaking with rage because they can't do anything about that feeling, and they have to take it out on someone or something, even themselves. So not very good. So one of the other techniques is to generate the mind of love. So I asked the question last week, is it easy to do that when you're in front of a person and you're angry? Is it easy to think about, oh, I love them, I wish they're happy, how fabulous that would be? Is that easy to do? No. So that's another one where you can turn it back into a meditation, rehearse it in meditation. And then, again, it's the same thing. It gives you that cognitive space. Next time, the mind of love and compassion will be there as the antidote to anger, because you've generated it already internally. So it'll give you some ability to handle it. So there's a few different techniques that work, including, someone mentioned the breath. So the breath's very good. And Geshe Doga mentions why the breath's so good is because you can be one-to-one, face up with the person who's either angry at you or your anger is rising, and if you pause and take a few breaths, the anger actually, its intensity subsides, and you focus on the breath for that, and you can do that without them knowing. You don't. It's not like like that, and then you sort of have to stop and go like this. You just keep breathing. So that's easy to do. Actually, you can do that in meditation or out of meditation, and that's a very good technique. So. So the other thing is, if you don't react with the anger, if you bottle it up, does that cause anything? Stress, tension, or can that sort of be a negative? Like you really, so you have to actually understand it, understand anger. And the Dalai Lama, His Holiness, says, he sometimes gets angry. So even he says that, which I find hard to believe personally. I sort of think, well, but he does give the anecdote. He's with his staff, his cooks and his attendants. He displays that mind of sharpness. You should be doing this properly or do this that way. So he does that, and then he says, when the mind of anger arises, he just observes it. He observes it, and then he looks at it, and then he goes, well, it's sharp and it's quick and it's powerful. But when he looks for its essence, he can't find anything solid to grip onto. Whereas when we're in that rage, it's all consuming. So he's able to just cut through it with his wisdom and compassion. So that's again another technique he's mentioned that he does, which is useful. So it gets to the point where is the mind of anger permanent? So if you're angry, will that be your permanent state? No? So
it consumes too much energy, so
you can't hold on to it. It consumes too much energy, you can't hold on to it. What about happiness? Could that be a permanent state, or is it one of those ones the same thing? It just takes too much energy and you.
No, it's a lot gentler.
Gentler and easier. Yep. So this gets back to the analogy which I've used. So for those newcomers, the ultimate state of the mind is like the sky, the clear light nature of the mind. It's pure and clear. Its nature is happiness, compassion, all the good qualities that we can sort of think of is in that mind. That's our ultimate state. And these afflicted states like anger are like the clouds that just sort of cover it up. So we say they're adventitious. So although they appear, they're not permanent. So they can be cleared away, and then all you're left with is this beautiful sky. So that's the Buddha nature. So the ultimate state of a human being or a being is to achieve that state. So that requires a fair bit of listening, and then contemplation, and then even meditation from your own side. So it's no point me saying that. You actually have to think about it yourself. And come to realise, well, is that true or not, or is it just rubbish? So that's for you to do. But certainly that's when you're looking at permanence. Is happiness permanent? We would say as Buddhists, yes, happiness can be a permanent state. It needn't be a fleeting state. So we're happy 1 minute and then angry and then depressed and then stressed. It doesn't. We can be happy, peaceful and happy all the time. So let's do a little bit of breathing meditation. And then what I'll do is I'll introduce these techniques within the meditation, but we'll do breathing first. So the main thing is just sitting with your back straight, whether you're on a chair or on the cushion. And then in our tradition, we've got the left hand underneath and the right hand on top, and our thumbs are touching, and we're pointing back towards the navel. And so our eyes are going to be half open, half closed, and we're going to be breathing through our nostrils, so our mouth's closed, and our tongue is touching the top of our palate. So as you're breathing in, you can breathe in beautiful enlightened energy, and as you're breathing out, you can be breathing out all the stresses and worries and concerns. And you can do that for a few moments, just to bring the mind in. So when you've brought your mind inside, internally, then just focus on the breath as it goes, the sensation of the breath. So it's a mental image as it goes in and out through the nostrils. And just try and keep your attention on that. And if it wavers, just bring it gently back to that. So then as you're breathing, so as you're doing the breathing meditation, just visualize in front of you someone you know very well. And this person can either be someone who is angry at you, or someone who pushes your buttons and it causes you to have anger when you see them or you interact with them. So as we observe that person, we're going to shift the focus a little bit. So instead of the immediate reaction, which could be negative, we're going to look at them in terms of them wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. And we should examine whether that's true or not. Are they driven by the same drivers that we are, that we want happiness and we want to avoid suffering? So think about the suffering that they endure and the lack of happiness they have, and that causes them to, I guess, to upset you. So in that moment, think that may they have happiness and the cause of happiness, and be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. By looking at them this way, you might develop some insight into them that you didn't have before, and that's because you're cultivating love and compassion for them. If you feel them directing anger at you, can you get angry at the person you strongly wish to have happiness? If you feel anger being directed at you, can you be like the piece of wood, just absorbing the anger but not reacting to it? So you're inert at that minute, at that point. If you feel anger rising in you, you can watch this emotion. Is it permanent? Is it long-lasting? What happens to anger? If you feel anger rising in you, switch your focus onto the breath. What happens? So when you are able, just bring your attention back to the room and open your eyes. So there are quite a few different techniques in that meditation. So did anyone have a favourite, or one that was least, most effective, or had caused some sort of reaction in them? Well, I like the one with the love and compassion, or the love and compassion one, because I can work on that in the meditation, and then when I really see the person, there's that split second where love and compassion is still prevailing before hostility and anger can sort of take over. So I find that's very good. So that's one of the reasons, again, where we do a motivation at the beginning. So we try and cultivate that mind of love and compassion even there. So same thing in that meditation. So last week a lady mentioned making tea. for a husband, or was that you? Someone mentioned it. It was a very good example of, and it could be anyone, but the person coming home and in a state, and instead of reacting with anger back or feeding the hostility, they made them a cup of tea and something to eat and sort of placated them, and then the anger didn't arise, or it stopped arising in the person, and it didn't arise in the person who was the gift giver. So it was a win-win. So we can do that too. So if we're approached by hostility, if we react with sort of a happy demeanour and mind of generosity, and then that can also make the anger or the hostility from the other person's side seem to dissipate, and the situation needn't become escalated or hostile. So it was a very good example that lady gave. So okay, so what about when you feel the anger rising in you and you watch it? When you watched it, was you able to see anything about the anger?
See justification. Quite justified that I should be so angry. It's like I was looking for a story why it's reasonable.
Yes. Yes.
See, I could keep
Feeling it, yes. That's a really good example. So you can be looking for justifications for why you should feel angry, and of course it's keep being angry. And I'm very good at this after the fact. Oh, I should have said this, and if only I'd said that, and I wish I'd had that a minute to get that great cutting comeback. It's sort of always afterwards, isn't it? The hindsight, isn't it? So you think, oh, but then when you look at it, you go, it's not very constructive, because all you're doing is, like you said, feeding it more and more. So my mind's not at peace at that point. In fact, that's what Geshe Doga describes as the discursive thought. So it's one little thought feeds another little thought, feeds another little thought, and eventually you get to an afflicted mind, eventually. So that's why you do the breathing meditation, just sort of bring the mind back in, so that those thoughts might come and go, but eventually they subside away, and then you can focus. So, that's a very good insight. So what about when you switched your focus onto the breath? Did anyone feel anything then? Was it any better? Was the anger more intense? No. Yes. So, and they say that the breath, it's not a neutral object. They say it's a virtuous object of meditation. So because it brings that result. So you can meditate on the table, but it's pretty much neutral, isn't it? So, but the breath, they say it's virtuous. It brings those good qualities, or good feelings of happiness to you. So with the person, was the person someone who is angry at you, or you get angry at them? Anyone like to share that? Sorry? Both. So the person you brought up, you'd get angry at them and they would push your buttons. Okay, yeah, that's true, isn't it? That's true, isn't it? Most relationships are like that. It's not always one way, but two-way traffic. So it's sort of like, So in terms of the advantages then, if one person's angry and the other one's not, then does the person who's not angry, are they happy? Are they at peace? Someone's shaking their no. I was hoping they'd say yes, but but anyway, I'm Oh, okay. Ah. Do you think? Yeah? No, okay. That's interesting, isn't it? So if you're quiet though and you're calm and you're happy, would that upset your happiness if they got more and more angry? Oh, okay. So, just to use your point, then, if you said, "Oh, well, I'll forget the calm and I'll just fight back," would that make them happy? Right. Yes. Do you think though that she likes to be inflammatory towards you for you to give a reaction? Do you think that she's happy when you like? No. But it feels like that's what she's driving at, is to get a reaction from you. Yeah, by saying something inflammatory. So it is very hard. So one of the things in Buddhism is, we talk about, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but it's just the environment, the law of cause and effect, so karma. So why do things happen to me? Why me? Is it random or determined? Is it sort of that, or is it somewhere in the middle? So in Buddhism we say it's the law of cause and effect, or karma. So things are not random, as in there's no reason, and things are not determined, as in, well, that's the fate, that's my fate, I can't do anything. So we're somewhere in the middle, where it's like causes and conditions are coming together to bring the environment and the people and what we're feeling and what we're experiencing, but we can do something about it from inside. So we can alter our response can change our experience. So that's important to bear in mind, that we're not looking at we need an external saviour to come and just tap the wand and then everything's magical. It's not like that. It's sort of like, okay, we need some techniques, we need some assistance, but then we're sort of like masters of whether we're going to be happy or not in that respect. So in fact, when we talk about in the refuge prayer, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma and the Sangha, the Dharma being the teachings. When we say the teachings, it can be the texts, the verbal teaching given by the masters, but it can also be your inner wisdom and realisation. They call that the Dharma as well. So ultimately that's what we're trying to activate. So the external texts and teachings help us, but really we want to activate that inner wisdom and compassion. So that's something different. So that's Buddhist. That's a Buddhist thought. So there's no external. Well, there are external beings, but we're not looking at an external being to tap the wand and do it. It's going, okay, we'll learn, and then we'll apply it, and then we become that Dharma or medicine, if you like. So does that make sense? So that's definitely something you won't find in other religions. But anyway, you examine that. So when to do the meditations, I like to do a little bit of meditation in the morning. So try and establish a good motivation, and then do a few minutes breathing meditation, and then focus, and then dedicate. And then Ed asked a very good question a few weeks ago about, can you re-establish your motivations throughout the day? And I said, no, for me it's quite difficult to keep remembering, what's my motivation? I can't. I'm just not like that. So I just go. But if I set it well enough first thing, then the impetus carries through the day. So then all I'm doing is checking checking, well, am I doing good, or am I not doing and doing not so good? So it's sort of then that's all. I'm not worrying about. I have to re-establish why I'm doing things. So okay, so that's important. And so if you can develop a habit of meditation, then that's the best. So you don't have to do long sessions, 1 hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, 12 hours, all day, every day. It's not like that, because we don't have the time, and we'd probably just find it's too hard. So it's better to do short sessions and do it consistently over a long period of time, and you'll see results that way. So you shouldn't be hard on yourself. I've been meditating a week, every day, and I can't see any difference. So it shouldn't be like that. You don't put too much pressure on yourself. Just be easy, and then over a prolonged period of time, you can look back and go, oh well, yeah, when I started, I was really quite agitated, and now I'm a lot calmer and happier. So they're good things to have a long-term view. Okay, so I'll talk a bit about the law of cause and effect, or karma. So it means that a positive action will lead to a positive result. A negative action will lead to a negative result. And in Buddhism, it goes hand in hand with the concept of rebirth. So if you think about it, if we had only one life, this life, then it wouldn't matter whether we were, apart from being, we want to be good moral beings, if we put that aside for a minute, it wouldn't make any difference whether we were virtuous right until we die, because when we're dead, we're dead. We don't go anywhere because we're finished. But because in Buddhism we have this idea of, well, the mind stream goes on to another rebirth, then what we do now, what we've done yesterday, carries forward. So that's the idea of rebirth, and it's intertwined with karma. So the karma is the action we're doing, whether they're virtuous or non-virtuous or neutral, and they're stored on our continuum, and then they ripen while we're alive, and they ripen also when we're about to die as well, and then they'll ripen in the next lifetime. So has everyone heard of that concept, karma? Law of cause and effect. So I used this example last year. If I give $10 to someone, and then someone gives me a day later someone gives me $10, is that one the cause and one's the effect, ripening? Ed, what do you think? Not necessarily? Yes. Depends on your motivation. Yes. Yeah. We generally say with the law of cause and effect, and again, because I'm a limited human being, they say it's very difficult for us to, we can see the cause, I did the action, but it's very hard to gauge the specific result for us, because the mind's, it's obscured. But so we're reading these teachings that the Buddha gave on, well, you do this action, this will be the result. So again, your mind is peaceful, your appearance is attractive in the future. So that's something we can probably see in this lifetime, that you can appear more peaceful, but my next lifetime, if I practice patience, I'm going to be attractive. So that's sort of I can't really see it, but I can read about it and think, oh, look, that's probably true. So, or not. So what we'd say is, the $10 I gave is not related to the next day someone giving me $10. So one's a cause. I'm creating a cause for some act of generosity, so it's a positive action. Hopefully the motivation's good. So that's true. And then the result, what happened the next day, someone gave me $10, they would say that the causes and conditions ripened from a previous action I've done for someone to give me $10. Does that make sense? Yeah, so it means we're not having to constantly think, well, oh, there's my karma ripening from last week's good action, because we drive ourselves crazy, I think, just trying to delve down that much. But we can certainly see the principle. So the principle also is that positive action will lead to a positive result, and a negative action will lead to a negative result. So where are those where are the store of those karmic actions carried? On the body? No? In the heart? Close, yep. So, in the heart, yep. They say it's on the mind stream. So it's on the mind stream. So we have this mind, the continuum of the mind that goes on, and then eventually at death, it stops, and that mind from this life sort of finishes, but the mind stream keeps going. So that's very subtle, but it'll carry the imprints of the actions you've created from the past. So
given how flawed most of us are,
mm-hmm.
I mean, is there any way to intervene in that karmic sort of cycle? Because I think, we all of us could think of things, that we regret that we haven't done well, things that hurt other people.
Yep.
So it's a pretty, I mean, one of the great things about Christianity, when it comes to that notion of forgiveness, that you can be forgiven and have a fresh life. Is there any sort of equivalent, or just at the end of this life you're going in a balance of, subtracting positive and negative?
Yes. Yeah, look, we even in Buddhism, we don't say it's the balance. It's sort of like whatever mind is there at the point of death, virtuous or non-virtuous, will determine where, what type of rebirth you take, where you go, and what form you have, whether it's a good life or not. So you think, oh, that's leaving a lot to chance, huh? Because you're thinking, well, and so that's where this whole thing of, well, be virtuous while you're alive, and then at death don't have any regret, and cultivate a good mind. So it's most important because the mind's really subtle at that point. So if you can stay in that state, what will ripen will be virtuous, positive and favourable. If your mind is filled with regret, which is one of the things we mentioned, I should have said this and I didn't say that, I didn't tell that person I loved them, and I cheated that all those things come up, and you go, your mind's going to be a bit clouded, and what might ripen is a rebirth in somewhere where you're cheated upon, you harm others harm you, so that's what can happen. But in answer to your question, we do have in Buddhism some way of mitigating the non-virtuous actions that we've created, from beginningless lifetimes. So we call those the four opponent powers, but we won't go into that too much tonight because it's another branch of study, and it's quite it's probably better towards next week and the week after, I think, but it's there. So it's definitely, because we go, oh well, and someone mentioned this a couple of weeks ago to me, I can't even remember what happened yesterday. What did I do yesterday? It's already a distant memory. I go, did I do anything wrong? Did I harm anyone? All that. So it gets tricky when you go, well, I've created these actions from when I was a child, or when I was, and I can't remember them all, but they weren't that good. So that's something, but you can purify them. So that's, in answer to your question, definitely. So the $10, we can all say, well, $10 is one, I've created a cause for something, and then the $10 received is another karmic seed ripening from probably a previous life. Now, in this world, in this human existence that we have, the karma can be quicker than that. So we don't need to think, oh well, that's a karma from a few lifetimes back ripening. What we create today or in this lifetime can ripen in this lifetime. So that gives us something to think about, because if that's the case, if you create a lot of virtue and a virtuous mind and cultivate all the good qualities, then you can go from ordinary human being, problematic mind, etc., to a fully enlightened state in one lifetime. If you had to wait, oh well, it's going to take eons and long time. It's a long, but in Buddhism we say no. There's a path that can actually be quick. If you cultivate the right sort of mind and the practices and so on, then the good causes you created earlier in your life can ripen very quickly into the full-blown state of Buddhahood. So that's very good, isn't it? So that's Buddhism again. So it's another, just specific to Buddhism, that talking about that. So again, there's no one with the wand saying, "Yeah, Mark, you've done really good. Bang, you're enlightened." It's nothing like that. So it's like you still have a teacher, the teachings, and the spiritual community helping, but the effort's yours. And then if you do it, then the result can be quick. So when we look at karma and cause and effect, we have to do it through the prism of, well, we can't quite get a fathom on that cause and that effect, but we can look at it more in general terms. So we can see someone who's rich and famous, but poor morals. So can anyone think of someone like that? Trump. Well, all right. Well, well, but yeah. So there's we won't pick on Donald Trump, but there's a good example of someone who's risen to the top. So you'd say, well, geez, he's created some very good karma. He's the head of the free world. He's created some causes and conditions for that to ripen. But you look at again some of the comments he's made and some of the views he holds. You go, well, it doesn't sort of compute. But you'd say, okay, that's cause created from the past ripening, and he's still got the same morals that you'd say, well, it doesn't seem to make sense, but that's how it works. So we say also Winks the horse. So Winks the horse winning all those races. What was it? 33 races in a row. So we would say, from a karmic perspective, that result is through the past practice of generosity. So Winks in a previous life, generous, ripens in this life, win, 33 times. So you think, oh, that's good on Winks, but then the karma for being born as an animal, does anyone know that? Lynn, what is it? The karma of being born as an animal. Ignorance? No, something specific. Well, it's lack of something. So it's lack of ethics, lack of a moral code. So if you're leading an immoral life, you can be born in the rebirth like an animal. So Winks has got the combination. So there you go. The karma to be reborn as an animal, but lots of riches, being attracted to that horse. So that's an interesting combination to have, because you go, all right, well, and we have our pets too, huh? Good life, pampered pooch, all that. oh, look at, you see, you go, I'm going to take them on a holiday, and, they get more on vet care than we spend on ourselves. We've got to get special food. So again, there's the karma to be pampered life, but they're born as an animal, so they've got that ignorance. So when we look back from a karmic perspective, there was some level of lack of ethics in that being to be reborn as an animal and not a human being. So, okay, so that's karma. So when you examine it, you'll start to see, there's all this combination, permutations coming through. But there's some that are, if you like, evident to us when we look. So just as we can purify the lady's question about purifying the past negativities of ourselves, we can also do things for others. So like our animals and our pets. So this is quite difficult because the animals are generally. There are probably exceptions. There's some animals that are very smart, but most animals, if you read something to them, they won't talk back to you. But they'll have a level of food, food's coming my way. That's what they'll hear, something like that, or reward, but they won't hear, well, Mark's just read the refuge prayer out to me. It's just, so they won't have that, but there is some benefit in reading the prayer to them. So the benefit is it puts imprints on their mind stream. And Lama Zopa Rinpoche is one of the main teachers here in this tradition. So he's forever stopping when there's an animal, a dog or whatever, and then saying mantras and prayers in their ears, breathing on them. So there's people everywhere like this, and he'll ignore them and just look at the animal, and then he'll do the prayer and breathe, and he'll spend like sometimes half an hour, 20 minutes doing that to benefit that animal. And the animal, it starts off like this, and it ends up ends up on its side because it's subdued by him. So you go, so completely at peace, and you think, well, it doesn't make sense. But anyway, that's just Lama Zopa, but he's doing that out of compassion and love and wisdom, because he sees, well, saying that prayer will have an effect on that being. It'll ripen in a good result somewhere. So we can do that as well. So that's very good. So that points to the fact that and I've only just touched it on the surface, but that the karma that I'm referring to isn't random or deterministic. So we're not in this escalator or, well, it's my lot in life, that's where I'm going, there's no detour, there's nothing I can do to change it. So we're not talking about that at all. So it's pretty much well, you've got the choice, you can react in a certain way to what happens, you can create virtuous causes, you can purify negative ones. So there's lots of things we can do. So and this isn't particular to Buddhism, I think other religions have this too, so you can actually, there's free will involved. So that's good too. So I think that's something to keep in mind. And again, I mentioned this in previous weeks, the human beings in this realm are blessed with that critical mind, that they're able to think things through, use their faculties to work things out. So that's a blessing, isn't it? We're not robots. We can actually go, that doesn't seem right, I'll put it aside, that seems pretty good, I'll check that out. So we can work things out. Whereas our friends in the animal world, by contrast, they can do it to a certain extent, but then it gets beyond them. So I've actually seen some very smart dogs, yeah. But the dog I had was a Cavalier, very cute, lap dog, affectionate, loved the family, loved humans, didn't like other dogs much, and didn't like older people for some reason. You know, he's a little. He's like, but if you said, "Oh, look who's come home! Look who's over there," he'd run the other way. So he wasn't. You know, like I'm sure other dogs, they'd know. Oh well, okay, you know, someone's come home that I know that. But he'd sort of run the opposite direction. So he wasn't very bright. So anyway, the point I'm making is the human in contrast, we can work things out and we can actually find the right way, etc. A lot more readily than perhaps the animal. So, does anyone have any questions? I've been doing a lot of talking, so. When we eat animals, if the animal's dead, then the need of karma is limited. But you can purify that too. Again, another thing, you don't need, because again, in Buddhism they say that the beings with a mind stream are multicellular organisms. So you're starting to talk about, you know, slightly bigger than a bacteria, like amoeba size and up. So when we thresh the fields, the wheat or whatever it is, we're killing millions and millions of insects, aren't we? So we'd say that in Buddhism we say, oh, that's a sentient being as well as the cow we're eating. That all those insects are being killed for our food. So it's very hard to survive without food and also without harming animals. Or, you know, we even when we drive our car at night time, particularly, you notice that, you know, the windscreen there's lots of insects attracted to that. So that's quite difficult. But we can, so if there's any negativity there, we can purify it. So, and we'll cover that in future weeks, because that's the same as the lady's point. Well, can we do anything about the negative actions we do, or are we stuck? You know, well, I've eaten the meat, and that's it. It's a negative karma that goes onto my mind stream, and that's it forever. And it'll ripen. So we can actually do something about it. It's a very good question, though. Yeah, on meat. So I've got 3 children. Omnivore, vegetarian, and vegan. So the jackpot. So I've got. So yeah. So anyway, so you have to. Anyway, I try and go. Okay. What do they want? What do they want to eat? Okay. So, but anyway. So anyway, Lama Zopa again. Bring back Lama Zopa. He has said, say this mantra to purify when you eat meat. So. Yes, you do. Yeah, because you're sort of thinking about how the food got there and what it is, and it sustains you, nourishes you, and you think, okay. And you're purifying anything too that's negative about it. So you think, because even if you eat a pile of greens, well, there was probably a million insects that died in that field when they cut the greens up and washed them, and they all drowned and all the rest of it, and then got to your plate and you've eaten it. So if you can bless it, eat it, purify it, eat it, then it's all good. So, yep. Any more questions? Okay, well, let's finish with meditation and dedication. So just to assume the pose. So back straight, eyes half open, half closed. Hands on your lap. The bottom hand's your left, and then the top one on top is the right. And then your thumbs are touching, pointing towards your navel, and your mouth's closed. And then you're just going to breathe through your nostrils, in and out. So you're going to at first breathing in enlightened energy. So it's just reducing any stress or worries that you may have. And as you breathe out, those stresses and worries are going out. So in and out. And just bring your attention inside. And then just focus on the thought that may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness, and may all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. So that includes us. So may all beings have happiness and the cause of happiness, and may all beings be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. So just bring your attention back to the room, and then we'll do the dedication, and then we'll finish. So this dedication is the back bookend. So we're directing the good merit we've created to this virtuous end. So it's important to do that, even if you don't do it formally in a prayer, to think about it at the end of the day. So I'll just read it out. So, may I quickly become Guru Lord Buddha and lead each and every sentient being into his enlightened realm because of these merits. And then the bodhicitta prayer. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen never diminish but increase more and more. Okay, so thank you everyone. Next week we do have a class. It's Easter Monday, but if anyone's going away, hope you enjoy yourselves and have a safe Easter. And hopefully see you next week. And it's tea and cake in the dining room. So thank you.